So Ayakashi's Triangle seems to be a manga that not a lot of people are actually talking about. So I went out and I read this manga, and in today's video I'm just going to be talking about some of my general thoughts and opinions on this manga. So if you enjoy videos about anime and manga, make sure you subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video. But with that being said, let's hop right into it. Ayakashi's Triangle is a manga that is a bit on the more obscure side, to say the least. In my opinion, it seems to be taking elements from a lot of different other anime and manga and putting them into one, such as ninjas. We already know that the ninja concept has already been done, but they seem to be adding on to that. For example, they actually have ninja exorcist in this manga, and it seems like they're taking the trope of ninja and the trope of exorcist and they're just combining it into one bigger idea. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you guys here. This manga isn't really doing anything revolutionary, and it seems like it's just taking old tropes and then making them new again, putting its own spin on them, and then giving it to us. Now, I don't say that to say that that's necessarily a bad thing, because if you really want to think about it, pretty much every manga borrows elements from other manga, and pretty much every anime borrows elements from other anime. This manga just happens to be doing a similar thing, but just in its own way. In my opinion, all of the chapters so far have a beginning, middle, and an end, and that's to say that they're pretty much slice of life in a way, but at the same time, there is an overarching story. So now getting more into the story details of this manga, it begins off with a Ayakashi, and it explains what an Ayakashi is. Essentially, an Ayakashi is a spirit or a yokai, and they're basically the antagonists of this series. However, it's important to note that not all Ayakashi are in fact evil. But for the Ayakashi who do happen to be evil and intend on harming humans, the exorcist ninjas come in and exorcise the Ayakashi. In chapter 1, we're introduced to the three main characters, Shirogane, Suza, and Matsuri. Matsuri is a 15-year-old boy who is an exorcist ninja. Suza is the girl character who's a little bit on the bubbly side, if you ask me, and she's able to see Ayakashi. And I say that because most humans actually can't see Ayakashi. So this in turn makes Suza very special. So that's why in the beginning of the manga, we see Shirogane attempt to devour Suza in order to obtain Suza's spiritual energy. Suza is a very special human, and I say human lightly because at some points it's unclear if she's actually fully human, but for the purpose of this video, I'll just go with human. She's very special because she can actually see Ayakashi, and she also has a very high spiritual energy level. So that pretty much draws a bunch of Ayakashi around her, some with evil intent and some with good intent. But for the ones with good intent or the low-level Ayakashi, she's actually able to command them and they actually listen. But for the high-level Ayakashi, a lot of them tend to want to devour her in order to take her energy and increase their own. So the entire plot of the manga is actually set for whenever Suzu is actually about to be devoured by Shirogane, who is supposedly supposed to be the Ayakashi spirit king. Now, the exorcist ninja Matsuri Kazumaki rushes in to save Suzu from being devoured by the Ayakashi king. But in the process of saving her, some crazy stuff actually begins to happen in the story. So this is kind of a minor spoiler, but I recommend you listen to it anyways because this can be a big factor in deciding whether you want to check out this manga or not. So proceed with caution. Matsuri Kazumaki of the Kazumaki clan actually attempts to seal away Shirogane, but in a desperate attempt by the Ayakashi king, he actually catches Matsuri off guard by transforming him into a female. Now, I know some people would consider that a spoiler, and it possibly is, but the fact is, it's important to mention because the majority of the manga actually revolves around the fact that this character is actually transformed into a female, effectively making this a gender bender manga, which might come as a surprise to some, but I actually have no problem with it. The only reason that I even mention it is because it happens to be a overarching plot element throughout the entire story. At the time of this recording, there's currently 8 chapters that have been released, and I think that's more than enough for me to get a pretty good idea on the direction that this manga is headed. I honestly do not think that Matsuri is going to be transforming back into a guy anytime soon, and I think that that's going to be a major element driving the plot forward in the upcoming chapters and pretty much the entire story. I really don't see him transforming into a guy anytime soon. This manga actually has a lot of ecchi elements, and what I mean by that is there's a lot of boobies and panty shots, which I, as the reader of this manga, I find these shots to be absolutely immaculate. However, I do have to realize some people will definitely get uncomfortable with panty shots of Matsuri. Now, for all intents and purposes, Matsuri is definitely a girl now because he was transformed by the power of the Ayakashi King's attack. There's also a lot of boob grabbing and groping. Some of you guys might be uncomfortable with that, so I thought it would be worth mentioning in this video. So yeah, if you're not comfortable with that kind of stuff, definitely this manga is not for you. But if you do like that kind of stuff, maybe you should check this out. Now, I don't want to make it sound like that's all that this manga is about because that would be an absolutely false statement. There's actually quite a few elements to this manga. So while there is boob grabbing and panty shots, another element of this manga that I should point out is the fact that there are quite a few action sequences. We actually are introduced to more exorcist ninjas and they have different techniques. Matsuri Kazumaki of the Kazumaki clan of exorcist ninjas specializes in wind jutsus. Now these are jutsus that obviously involve some kind of wind technique, and I think they're pretty cool. It allows him at some moments to actually seem like he's flying, or in actuality actually fly. He's able to blow strong gusts of wind, but he also has other techniques that involve throwing shurikens and adding wind to them to make them even more stronger. So one of the overarching elements in this manga is the fact that Matsuri doesn't really want to associate with any of the Ayakashi. Now Suzu, on the other hand, befriends a lot of the Ayakashi, and this can somewhat be a detriment to her as a person because she obviously has a very high spiritual energy, which obviously attracts more Ayakashi towards her, and some of them are good and some of them are bad. But if she just always thinks that they're good, some of them are going to be tricking her into thinking they're good while in actuality they're bad. So Matsuri, being a good friend that he is, decides that it's his duty as an exorcist ninja to protect her by any means necessary. Even if that means he has to remain a girl for the rest of his life, he'll do it in order to protect his friend. Suzu, on the other hand, isn't really a big proponent of that idea for the fact that she has a romantic interest in Matsuri. And remember how I told you guys this manga has some elements of ecchi? Well, without me spoiling too much, you guys should prepare yourself to see some very sensual scenes, to say the least. So if you're into that kind of thing, you should check out the manga. And if you're not into things like that, then you should definitely stay away from this. So moving on to the actual presentation of this manga, it's presented to you in a very inviting art style. The character designs are very round and full, and the backgrounds are very well executed. Most of the Ayakashi have some very cool designs, and the background characters for the most part are pretty much drawn up to par. I actually found myself looking at some of these panels and just thinking to myself, wow, I could look at this all day. And I actually paused on some of them and just actually took the time out to look at them for an extended period of time. So overall, despite this manga not being anything revolutionary or anything like that, I still definitely enjoyed my time reading it. And I think that's actually a good thing to sometimes take a step back and read a manga that's meant to be fun instead of a manga that's meant to be a critical success. Now with that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed my video, and if you did, please leave me a like, comment, and subscribe. It's been your boy NeoXO, and I'm out.